AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her bridal party drama. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Laura, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child in the family, smart, pretty, charismatic, and effortlessly popular. I was quieter, more introverted, and often felt overshadowed by her. Despite this, we were close enough that I thought we could talk through most things as adults. That belief was seriously tested over the past year with her wedding. Laura got engaged last summer, and she immediately began making plans that seemed to revolve more around herself than anyone else. She picked a date, venue, and theme almost immediately and asked me to be her maid of honor. I was genuinely honored, but also nervous because I knew her standards were extremely high, bordering on controlling. I agreed anyway, because I wanted to support her. The first red flag came when she started picking her bridal party. She invited her friend from college and work, some of whom I barely knew. That's fine, but then she started being extremely specific about what everyone could and could not wear, how we should do our hair and makeup, and even how we should act at pre-wedding events. She created a strict schedule for everything: bachelorette party, bridal shower, and rehearsal dinner. Each event had rules and expectations that seemed impossible to meet. I tried to be patient and accommodating, telling myself it was just stress and that she needed control to feel comfortable on her big day. Things escalated when she announced that she was going to make everyone in the bridal party split the cost for the dress, accessories, hair, makeup, and travel. While I understand contributing to a wedding, the amount she demanded was astronomical, over $1,000 for each person. Some of my friends who were also invited, but not in the bridal party, decided to skip the event because it was too expensive. I didn't mind paying my share, but the way she presented it felt like a demand rather than a request. I gritted my teeth and paid anyway because I wanted to be supportive. The breaking point came during the planning of the bachelorette weekend. Laura had a very specific vision. It had to be in another city at a luxury resort, and she wanted all of us to participate in activities she picked. My friends and I tried to offer alternative ideas that were more budget-friendly and less stressful, but she dismissed everything. On top of that, she started keeping a running list of who did what wrong during the planning process. If someone suggested a change or complained about cost, she would email the entire bridal party a detailed explanation of why the idea wouldn't work and subtly shame anyone who disagreed. It felt like walking on eggshells constantly. I reached my limit when she announced that she wanted all of us to create individual speeches for the wedding, each one no more than 3 minutes, with specific guidelines about tone, topics, and phrasing. She literally sent a 10-page document outlining exactly what we could and could not say. I tried to politely explain that this level of micromanagement was overwhelming and that I felt uncomfortable performing under such strict rules. Laura interpreted this as me being unsupportive and trying to ruin her big day. The night of the rehearsal dinner, things went downhill fast. Laura confronted me privately, saying I was not committed to her wedding because I had expressed concerns about the rules and costs. She accused me of embarrassing her in front of the bridal party. I tried to explain calmly that I loved her and wanted her wedding to be beautiful, but I couldn't agree to every single unreasonable demand. She cried, I cried, and by the end of the night, I felt emotionally drained. The next morning, I made the decision not to attend the wedding. I wrote a heartfelt message to Laura explaining that I couldn't participate under the current conditions because the stress, financial strain, and strict control had become too much. I said that I loved her and would be happy to celebrate with her in another way, but I couldn't be part of an event that was causing me so much anxiety. I sent it and braced myself for backlash. The backlash came, just as expected. Laura hasn't spoken to me since. She's posted on social media about how families should always support each other no matter what, which I assume is aimed at me. Our parents are furious, saying that I'm being selfish and ruining a milestone for the family. Some friends have expressed sympathy, while others say I should have just sucked it up because it was her day. I feel torn. Part of me feels guilty for letting her down on such an important day, but another part of me feels justified because the situation had become toxic and emotionally damaging. I've been struggling with feelings of anger, sadness, and isolation since the wedding. I haven't heard directly from Laura since I sent my message, and our family keeps pressuring me to apologize or make amends, but I feel like apologizing would mean admitting I was wrong when my boundaries were being violated. I also worry that if I give in, I'll just be reinforcing a pattern of controlling behavior that could affect me in the future. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I couldn't handle her bridal party's micromanagement and controlling demands. I love my sister, but I also love my mental health and financial stability. I just don't know if that makes me selfish or if I was justified in protecting myself. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's wedding after she demanded I give up my job for a big day. This has been brewing for years, and I never thought it would come to a head in such a dramatic way. 29F, work as a freelance graphic designer. I've been freelancing for about 5 years now, and I love it because it gives me flexibility, but it's also very much a feast or famine career. Some months are amazing. Some are barely enough to pay rent. My sister, Emily, 32F, has always been the golden child in our family. She's high-achieving, gorgeous, and has a way of making people orbit her life. I've tried not to be bitter, but it's hard when every major event always centers around her and her needs. Emily got engaged about 6 months ago, and immediately the planning started. She hired a wedding planner, booked an extravagant venue, and essentially began treating everyone in her life like props for her Instagram-worthy day. I was thrilled for her, genuinely, but I also noticed early on that her expectations for her bridal party were intense. 2 months into planning, she sat me down and said, "I know your freelance schedule is flexible, but I need you to take a full week off in June to help with the wedding prep. And I'm going to need you to step away from work the day before and the day of the wedding. You have to be available for fittings, decorations, errands, and basically everything else I need." I laughed nervously and said, "I can try to shuffle things around, but I do have clients, and some of them are on strict deadlines. I can't just vanish without notice." She looked at me like I had just told her I was moving to Mars. "No, this is non-negotiable. I need my sister there for support. You'll be fine. Just tell your clients you're unavailable. This is my big day, the most important day of your life." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Over the next few weeks, her demands escalated. She wanted me to create all the DIY wedding signs, address invitations, handle RSVPs, and coordinate deliveries. She also expected me to take multiple days off for dress fittings, bachelorette party planning, and rehearsal dinner setups. I reminded her that my freelance work doesn't exactly have a replacement. Clients expect me to meet deadlines or lose the contract. Her response was, "If you love me, you'll make this work. I can't believe you'd prioritize money over family." I tried to compromise, offering to do what I could outside of client deadlines, but apparently that wasn't enough. The breaking point came when she asked me to just quit work for the week because she didn't want me stressed or distracted at her wedding. I told her point blank that I couldn't risk quitting for 1 week. My income doesn't work like that. Freelancing means no work equals no pay, and I have bills, rent, and student loans. Emily lost it. She accused me of being selfish, not supporting her as a sister, and not caring about her happiness. She even went so far as to say that if I didn't comply, I wouldn't be part of the wedding at all. I reminded her that I had already committed to certain deadlines, and I could not drop everything on her demand. The day she made this ultimatum, I felt a mixture of anger, disbelief, and sadness. I really tried to be supportive, but it felt like she was asking me to erase my responsibilities and my livelihood for a single day. I finally told her I couldn't quit my work and that I wouldn't be able to participate in the wedding if that was a requirement. The fallout has been brutal. She called our parents and framed me as the villain who refused to support her on her most important day. My parents were disappointed, to put it lightly. They said things like, "You could have at least tried harder. and Emily's wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Why wouldn't you do this for her? Even my best friend, who knows both of us, said that she understands why I'm refusing, but that family pressure is intense, and Emily is unlikely to forgive me anytime soon. Now, I haven't spoken to Emily in 3 weeks, and the wedding is next month. My parents are still subtly guilt-tripping me, asking if I've reconsidered. I feel torn because I don't want to miss my sister's wedding entirely, but I also feel like she's asking me to make a choice that I fundamentally cannot make without harming my career and financial stability. Friends have been supportive, saying that her demands are unreasonable, but I keep thinking maybe I'm being selfish. After all, it's her wedding. Should I just swallow my pride and quit for a week, or is this really crossing a line? So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's wedding because she demanded I quit work for it? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé be around my children after what happened at our family dinner? I, 34F, have 2 kids, ages 8 and 5. My sister, Lisa, 31F, has been dating her fiancé, Matt, 33M, for about 2 years. We've always had a close relationship, and our families used to see each other all the time. However, things have been strained since Matt came into the picture. Honestly, I didn't like him from the start, but I tried to be polite and keep an open mind. My sister is head over heels for him, so I didn't want to interfere, but my gut kept telling me something was off. The story begins with a family dinner at my parents' house last month. My parents love hosting, and it's usually chaotic but fun. Lisa and Matt were invited, of course, along with their families. I had my kids with me, and everything seemed normal at first. We had a big dinner, and everyone was talking and laughing. Around dessert, things started to go sideways. Matt, who had been drinking a little, started teasing my daughter, Sophie 8. He made a comment about how she was so bossy for her age, and then proceeded to mock her when she insisted on helping set the table for dessert. My son, Noah, 5, was sitting quietly playing with his food, and Matt made a joke about him being weird for not talking much. At first, I tried to laugh it off, thinking maybe he didn't realize he was being hurtful. But then it escalated. Sophie started crying because she felt humiliated in front of everyone. I calmly asked Matt to stop teasing her, but he laughed it off and said she was too sensitive. My parents tried to intervene lightly, but Matt shrugged it off, making a joke about how I was overreacting as usual. I was furious, but tried to stay calm for my kids' sake. After dessert, Matt made another comment that crossed a line. We were sitting in the living room, and Sophie wanted to show him a drawing she had made. He looked at it and said, "Wow, you really put effort into this. Too bad you'll never be as good as your cousin." My cousin, who was there, is very artistic, but this was unnecessary and cruel. Sophie started crying again, and I snapped. I told Matt that he was being inappropriate and that if he couldn't treat my kids with respect, he needed to leave. Matt argued and said I was too controlling and that he was just joking. My parents sided with me quietly, saying they didn't appreciate how he was handling things either. Lisa, however, got upset with me. She said I was overreacting and that Matt didn't mean any harm. She even suggested that maybe my kids were too sensitive and needed to learn to take a joke. I told her that my kids being teased and mocked was not a joke and that I would not tolerate it. After the dinner, Lisa called me multiple times, insisting that I apologize to Matt for making a scene and that I needed to let her fiancé be around my kids. I refused. I explained that until he could show basic respect for them, he would not be allowed around my house or events involving my kids. Lisa got furious, accusing me of trying to control her life and ruining her relationship. She even told my parents that I was being unreasonable. Since then, the tension has been unbearable. My parents support me, but are caught in the middle because they want a peaceful family dynamic. Lisa has not spoken to me except for a few angry texts accusing me of being a bad sister and aunt. Matt, to be honest, hasn't reached out at all, and I'm okay with that. A few things happened that made me feel justified in my decision. After the dinner, my son told me that he didn't want Matt around anymore because he made him feel weird and stupid. Sophie said that Matt made her cry on purpose. Hearing this from my children confirmed that I was right to protect them. Now, other family members are weighing in. Some say I should give Matt a chance, because it might be the only way for Lisa to be happy. Others think I'm completely in the right for standing up for my kids. I feel torn because I do love my sister, but I cannot, in good conscience, allow someone who belittles my children into our lives. Lisa keeps pressuring me, and I've started to feel guilty because she's really upset. I told her repeatedly that this isn't about her. It's about how Matt treats my kids. I even offered a compromise. If he sincerely apologized to my children and attended a parenting workshop to understand appropriate boundaries with kids, maybe we could reconsider. Lisa said that was ridiculous and that I was humiliating Matt in front of everyone. Now, I'm worried that this could permanently damage my relationship with my sister. I want her in my life, but I also need to protect my children. I know she's an adult and can make her own choices, but it feels like she's prioritizing her relationship with Matt over our family. I've tried talking to her calmly, but every conversation ends in an argument. I have considered a few things. Maybe I'm being too strict and should just let Matt be around my kids in supervised settings. But after hearing how my children felt, I can't just ignore their feelings. I also don't want my parents to feel stuck in the middle forever. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé be around my kids after what happened at our family dinner. I feel like I'm protecting my children, but my sister says I'm destroying her relationship and our family dynamic. I'm open to perspective because I genuinely don't want to lose my sister, but I also won't compromise my children's emotional safety. Character count: 6,424. Would you like me to create a second, slightly longer version that pushes closer to 7,000 characters for extra detail and tension? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded my partner from the guest list. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 33F. We grew up in the same household, but our personalities couldn't have been more different. She's extremely traditional, family-oriented, and a bit controlling, while I'm more independent, laid back, and have always pushed back against her expectations. That said, we've always had a cordial relationship, and I genuinely try to support her through milestones, even when she made choices I didn't fully agree with. My sister got engaged last year to her fiancé, Alex, 34M, and immediately started planning what she called her dream wedding. She's very meticulous, and she had very specific ideas for every aspect of the day. From the beginning, she mentioned that the wedding would be a small, intimate family affair with a very limited guest list. I thought it was strange given how large our extended family is, but I didn't push back, assuming it was her choice. Here's where things got tricky. When I asked if I could bring my partner, Jordan, 30M, she hesitated and then said, "I don't think it would be appropriate. I want this to be family only." I was taken aback because Jordan and I have been together for 3 years and lived together. He's been supportive of everything in my life, and I genuinely expected him to be included at family events. I tried to explain this, saying that not including him felt disrespectful, especially since he's a significant part of my life. Emily doubled down, saying that the wedding is about my family, not about your relationship. I asked if we could at least discuss it or compromise, maybe include him for the ceremony, but not the reception, or let him come for a pre-wedding dinner. She flat out refused. I felt hurt and excluded, but I decided to let it go and attend solo, thinking it would be important for family harmony. However, as the wedding day approached, I started feeling more and more uneasy. Jordan was obviously disappointed, and I was frustrated that Emily wouldn't even consider how this made me feel. We had some heated arguments about it, and I started realizing that attending without him might feel like a betrayal to both of us. A week before the wedding, I made the difficult decision to tell Emily that I would not attend unless Jordan was invited. I wrote a long, respectful message explaining how I felt, that my relationship with Jordan is serious, that excluding him felt hurtful, and that attending without him would be emotionally taxing. I made it clear that I was willing to compromise, but I could not go under these conditions. Emily's reaction was explosive. She accused me of trying to control her wedding, making it about myself, and holding her wedding hostage. She called our parents and tried to convince them that I was being unreasonable. My parents were in a difficult position, They understood both sides, but ended up leaning slightly toward Emily, saying that it was her wedding and she could decide who comes. My dad called me to say that while he sympathized, he thought I should just suck it up and go. My mom sent a message urging me to reconsider for the sake of family. Jordan was incredibly supportive. He said he would never want me to go somewhere where I felt disrespected or uncomfortable. We both agreed that it wasn't worth the drama, and I officially told Emily that I would not attend. I also asked that she not talk negatively about us to the family. The fallout has been worse than I expected. Emily hasn't spoken to me since, and our parents are upset. At a recent family gathering, several relatives expressed disappointment, saying I was being selfish and overreacting. Some even suggested I was punishing Emily by not attending. On social media, a few extended family members subtly criticized me, saying that family loyalty matters more than feelings about a wedding. I tried to explain my perspective, but it seems most people are firmly on Emily's side. On my end, I still feel conflicted. I don't want to cause a rift in the family, but I also feel like it's unreasonable to ask someone to attend a milestone event alone when it directly impacts their partner and emotional well-being. I've been questioning whether I overreacted or if I should have just attended for the sake of appearances, but the thought of doing so makes me feel anxious and resentful. To complicate things, Emily keeps posting pictures of the wedding on social media, and I can see from the captions and comments that everyone is framing me as the villain. Jordan has suggested ignoring it, but I feel a mix of sadness, guilt, and anger. I've considered reaching out to Emily again to apologize for the confrontation while still standing firm about my decision, but I worry it will be interpreted as weakness or backpedaling. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she excluded my partner? I genuinely don't want to be selfish or hurtful, but I also don't feel like my boundaries are being respected. AITA for telling my sister she can't bring her new boyfriend to our family vacation after he publicly embarrassed me. This happened over the summer, and honestly, I still feel conflicted about it, but I need to know if I really overreacted. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. We've always been close, but we have very different personalities. I'm more introverted and prefer low-key social situations, while Emily is very outgoing and thrives on being the center of attention. Our family is very tight-knit and spends most summers together at our family's lake house. This year, we were all planning to go in August, which has always been a tradition. About a month before the trip, Emily started dating someone new, Jake, 27M. She told me he's amazing and funny and insisted I'd love him. I told her that I'd like to meet him eventually, but I don't get along with new people in high-energy situations very well, and I'd prefer to ease into meeting him. Emily said that was fine and promised nothing over the top would happen. Fast forward to the first weekend of our trip. Emily decides she wants to introduce Jake to everyone on the first night. I was okay with a small introduction, but the way it went down was completely different. Instead of a simple, "Hi, meet Jake," she made him the center of attention, asking him to do jokes, magic tricks, and even telling stories that involved embarrassing moments about me from her childhood. I laughed awkwardly, trying to go along, but I could tell Jake found it funny too. The worst part was when he pulled out his phone and played a video Emily had made from a party I didn't attend, showing me completely drunk and laughing hysterically at me falling over. He said loudly, "Wow, I see I'm marrying into the fun side of the family." Everyone laughed, and I froze. I felt completely humiliated. I asked him to stop, but he just laughed it off. Emily seemed embarrassed at first, but then she laughed along. I left the room and spent the rest of the night in my bedroom, crying and feeling completely excluded. My parents noticed I wasn't at dinner and asked what happened. I explained everything, and they were sympathetic but said I should try to get along with Jake because he makes Emily happy. I said I would, but not under those circumstances. The next day, I sat down with Emily and told her that I didn't feel comfortable around Jake after what he did. I told her that it wasn't about me being sensitive, it was about boundaries and respect. I asked her not to bring him on the rest of the family trip. Emily immediately got defensive. She said I was overreacting and that Jake didn't mean anything by it. She said I was making him feel unwelcome in our family, and that she would either bring him or not come at all. I told her that I wanted her to come, but not him. She said I was choosing a new boyfriend over her and stormed out of the room. Our parents got involved at this point. They sat us down and tried to mediate, suggesting we find a compromise, like maybe Jake comes to dinner, but not to group activities. I said no, I just didn't feel comfortable having him there at all. Emily said she would leave if he couldn't come. My parents gave in, saying it wasn't worth ruining the trip. Emily ended up staying, and Jake was there for the rest of the trip. I stayed mostly in my room or left for walks around the lake to avoid him. Jake did continue making jokes at my expense whenever possible, sometimes under the guise of just teasing. Emily would laugh nervously but rarely defended me. I tried to participate in activities, but I felt like everyone was watching me through the lens Jake had created. After the trip, I decided I couldn't keep avoiding Emily and having our relationship damaged because of this. I wrote her a long text saying that I didn't hate Jake, but his behavior was unacceptable and that I expected an apology and acknowledgement of how hurtful it was. I also asked Emily to respect my feelings in the future and not put me in situations where I'm humiliated for someone else's entertainment. Emily read the text, but responded that I was being controlling and that if I couldn't accept her choices, maybe our relationship needed a break. Since then, we've barely spoken. Our parents think I overreacted. Some friends say I should have let it slide, and others agree that Jake's behavior was completely inappropriate. I feel like I was justified because it's not just about being teased. It was public humiliation and disrespect for my boundaries. I honestly don't know if I was too harsh by outright asking Emily not to bring him. I get that she's happy in her relationship, but I also feel like family vacations should be safe spaces where no one is mocked or embarrassed. I'm torn because I love my sister and don't want to damage our relationship permanently, but I also don't think I should have to endure that kind of behavior. So Reddit, AITA for telling my sister she couldn't bring her new boyfriend to our family vacation after he publicly embarrassed me. Character count, 6,455 if you want. I can also create a version that pushes closer to 7,000 characters with extra tension, more interactions with parents, and an extended resolution attempt. It would feel even more viral Reddit style. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in after he got evicted. So, this is a bit of a long one, and it's been weighing on me for weeks. I, 28F, live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent part of town, and I share it with my roommate/best friend, Mia, 27F. We've been living together for 3 years, and for the most part, things run smoothly. I work as a graphic designer, Mia is a nurse, and we've got a pretty stable routine. My younger sister, Emma, 24F, started dating a guy named Kyle about 6 months ago. At first, I didn't have any strong opinions about him. He seemed nice enough, funny, and generally respectful. But things started changing in small ways that I didn't like. For example, every time I mentioned my apartment or finances, he would make passive comments about how expensive my rent is or how unfair it is that people have to pay so much to live on their own. It was annoying, but I brushed it off. 2 weeks ago, Emma called me crying because Kyle had been evicted from his apartment. Apparently, he had not been paying rent for months, and his landlord finally kicked him out. Emma asked me if he could crash at my place for a week or two until he figured things out. I told her that was fine for a few nights. He could stay for the weekend while he looked for a new place, but I was clear that he couldn't move in long term. When Kyle arrived, I tried to be polite, but it quickly became obvious that he expected to treat my apartment as his own. He left dirty dishes in the sink, borrowed things without asking, and started commenting on how I should rearrange the furniture to make it more functional, and how we could save money if we shared groceries. Mia and I were immediately uncomfortable, and I tried to enforce boundaries without outright telling him to leave. The breaking point came a few days later when Kyle mentioned that he wanted to move in permanently until he got back on his feet. He said he would pay a little rent, but didn't specify an amount. I told him firmly that this wasn't an option and that he needed to find his own place. Emma, however, became very upset. She started accusing me of not being family-oriented and kicking her boyfriend out when he has nowhere to go. She said Kyle had no friends or relatives to stay with and that I was being selfish. I tried to reason with her. I explained that my apartment is small, I already have bills and commitments, and I have a life to maintain. I also pointed out that Kyle had made poor financial decisions that led to his eviction and that it wasn't my responsibility to fix his situation. Emma got angrier, saying I was being cruel and heartless. She even brought up the fact that I had refused to help her move last year, which I found unfair because that was a separate situation and I had a valid reason: work project and financial constraints. The argument escalated over text and then in person. Kyle chimed in, saying that I was mean and that he couldn't believe I was refusing to help family. He said that since I was being so stingy, he might as well just sleep in the park. That last comment made me livid because he was trying to guilt trip me. Mia was on my side the whole time, supporting my decision and reminding me that setting boundaries doesn't make me a bad person. Emma eventually left my apartment in tears, saying that I was the worst sister and that she couldn't believe I wouldn't help her boyfriend. I haven't spoken to her much since. Kyle left after a couple more nights and apparently found a friend to stay with temporarily, though I haven't heard much from them. Here's the thing. After all of this, a few mutual friends have reached out and said that I might have been too harsh. They argue that family should help each other out and that maybe I could have compromised by letting him stay for a week or two longer while he searched for a place. I get that perspective, but I can't shake the feeling that letting him move in permanently, or even for a month, would have been unfair to me and Mia, especially given his track record with paying rent and respecting other people's space. I also feel conflicted because Emma has always been very close to me, and it hurts that this situation has caused a rift. I worry that I'm being selfish, but I also worry that giving him would just create resentment and set a precedent that I can be taken advantage of. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in after he got evicted. AITA for refusing to invite my brother to my wedding because of something he did 10 years ago. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older brother, Jason, 36M. Growing up, he was the kind of sibling who was charming to everyone else, but could be extremely manipulative and cruel at home. Most of the time, it was subtle, stealing my things, spreading rumors at school, or just deliberately making my life harder. But there was one incident that really cemented the divide between us. When I was 18, just finishing high school, I had a scholarship to a prestigious college in another state. I was excited, nervous, and honestly a little scared to leave home. Jason, who had been living at home while working a mediocre job, knew I was leaving and had access to my savings account. I had about $5,000 saved from part-time jobs over the years. I woke up one morning to find it empty. He had forged my signature on some transfer forms and spent the money on himself over a few weeks. I confronted him, and he didn't deny it. Instead, he told me it was fair because I had more money than him and that he needed it more. Our parents tried to mediate, but they mostly minimized it, saying I should just forgive him. I was devastated, and I cut off most of my contact with him, only speaking when absolutely necessary. Fast forward 10 years. I've managed to build a stable life. I'm married to my fiancée, Alex, 30M, and we're planning our wedding. We're having a pretty small, intimate event with family and close friends. I didn't really think much about inviting Jason because, honestly, he hasn't been in my life for years and has done little to prove he's changed. But then my parents started pushing for it, saying he deserves to be at my wedding because he's my brother. I asked them why, and they said, "You can't hold grudges forever, and it's a family event." I explained that what he did was serious and that I don't feel safe or comfortable having him at a major milestone in my life. They brushed it off, saying that he's older, he's matured, and that 10 years is a long time to hold something against someone. I reminded them that he never apologized or made amends in a meaningful way, and my parents said that the wedding isn't about old grievances. It's about family coming together. I tried to reason with them, but they wouldn't budge. Eventually, I had to make a decision. I told Jason he wasn't invited. I explained that I love him as a brother in theory, but that he violated my trust in a way I can't forget or forgive, and that I can't have him at my wedding. I offered to meet for lunch or coffee separately sometime, but I wasn't comfortable including him on my wedding day. As soon as I sent him the message, my parents blew up. They called me selfish, cruel, and said I was allowing the past to ruin the present. They said I was being dramatic and that my decision was going to cause family tension that could have been avoided. Jason himself responded with a very manipulative message, basically gaslighting me about the money, saying that I must be remembering it wrong, and that he thought I would have wanted him to have it. My fiancé, Alex, has been fully supportive and agrees that I am not obligated to have someone at my wedding who has caused me harm. He said that marriage is about setting boundaries and protecting our relationship from toxic dynamics. He's also offered to go with me if my parents or Jason try to confront me in person about it. After the conversation with my parents, my extended family also got involved. Some of them sided with me, saying it's reasonable to not invite someone who caused serious harm and hasn't made an effort to repair the relationship. Others, particularly my aunts and uncles, started pressuring me, saying I should just let it go and be the bigger person. They framed it as if refusing to invite him is a moral failing rather than a legitimate boundary. The tension has escalated over the last couple of weeks. My parents have threatened not to attend if Jason isn't invited. Some family members have subtly shamed me, asking if I really want to be remembered as the bride who snubbed her brother. Meanwhile, I feel like my wedding is supposed to be about me and Alex, not about placating family members who can't respect my boundaries. I've tried to explain that this isn't about holding a grudge for the sake of bitterness. It's about protecting myself from someone who has shown he cannot be trusted, but it feels like no one is hearing me. To make matters worse, Jason has started showing up on social media with cryptic posts that seem to be aimed at me. I haven't responded to any of them. I'm worried that if he somehow finds out about the wedding details, it could get even messier. I feel torn. On one hand, I know I have every right to make this decision for my own safety and peace of mind. On the other hand, my parents keep insisting I'm overreacting and that family loyalty should trump my feelings. I've been trying to be calm and reasonable, but every time they bring it up, it feels like they're dismissing my experience. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to invite my brother to my wedding because of something he did 10 years ago, even though my parents and some family members think I should forgive and forget. I should also clarify, I'm not seeking to start a public feud with him or my family. I just want to feel safe and comfortable on my wedding day without having to worry about someone who has betrayed me in the past. The wedding is in a few months, and the more people push me to include him, the more anxious I feel. I'm trying to hold my ground, but the constant pressure from family is really testing my patience. I want to do what's right for me and Alex, but I can't shake the fear that everyone will see me as unreasonable or selfish if I follow through with my decision. This has turned into a bigger family drama than I expected, and I feel like I'm being put in a position where my own feelings are less important than appeasing others. I know people will have strong opinions either way, but I need to hear it from strangers who don't have a personal stake in my family. I just want to enjoy my wedding day without worrying about whether my brother might ruin it or whether I'm wrong for protecting myself. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he did something completely inappropriate. This is going to be a long one, so please bear with me. I, 29F, have a sister, Lisa, 32F, and she recently got engaged to a guy named Mark, 34M. I have always been really close to Lisa, and our family dynamic is usually very supportive, so I didn't expect to be in this position. My house has always been a safe space for family, and I like to think of myself as accommodating and understanding, but recent events have really tested my patience. To give you some context, I live alone in a medium-sized apartment in the city. I work from home, so my schedule is flexible, but I like peace and quiet. Lisa and Mark live in another city about 3 hours away, and they've been planning their wedding for next year. A few months ago, they asked if they could stay at my place for a weekend because Mark had a work conference nearby and Lisa wanted to check out some local venues. I hesitated at first because I didn't want to disrupt my routine, but I love my sister and she rarely asks for help, so I said yes. When they arrived, everything seemed normal. We went out for dinner, caught up, and I thought the weekend would be fine. On the first night, we stayed up chatting, and I noticed Mark was a little flirty with me, but I brushed it off as joking, thinking maybe he was just being awkward or trying to be funny. Lisa didn't seem to notice, and I didn't want to overreact. The real issue started the next morning. I was making coffee in my kitchen when Mark came in and started commenting on how cute my apartment was, which I initially appreciated as a compliment. But then he started making personal comments about my appearance, saying things like, "You really know how to dress for your body type. I never realized that about you." I froze, because while compliments can be normal, there was an unmistakable undertone that felt inappropriate. I told him, lightly, that I wasn't comfortable with those types of comments. He laughed it off and said he was just admiring me. Throughout the weekend, Mark's behavior escalated. He kept finding excuses to be around me when Lisa wasn't looking. He'd stand uncomfortably close, make unnecessary comments about my figure, and even try to touch my shoulder a few times. I moved away and said, "I'm really not comfortable with that," and each time he pretended to misunderstand, saying, "I didn't mean anything by it. You're overthinking." The final straw came on the second night. Lisa had gone to bed early because she was exhausted from venue hunting. Mark asked if I wanted to play a video game with him in the living room. I said no, I needed to work on some stuff, but he persisted, saying, "Come on, don't be boring. Just you and me." I told him firmly that I wasn't interested and went to my room. A few minutes later, I hear my bedroom door handle jiggle. I froze, and after a tense moment, he retreated, saying something like, "Relax, I was just checking if you needed anything." That's when I realized I could no longer ignore the seriousness of his actions. The next morning, I told Lisa everything. At first, she was in disbelief. She said, "Mark would never do that. Are you sure?" I explained every incident in detail. She said she would talk to him privately and that I shouldn't confront him directly because it could ruin the weekend. I agreed to stay out of it, thinking she could handle it. Later that day, Lisa comes back, looking upset, and says, "I believe you, but I think you overreacted." Mark said he was just being friendly, and now he's hurt. He's also saying he can't stay here anymore if you're going to be like this. I was shocked. I said, "You mean to tell me that he's being inappropriate and I'm the one being asked to accommodate him?" Lisa tried to mediate, but she was leaning toward keeping peace with Mark rather than acknowledging his behavior. I ended up telling both of them that I could no longer host them. Lisa begged me, saying they only had one more night, but I stood firm. I told her, "I'm not responsible for making you or him comfortable in my home if he can't respect me." I offered to help them find a nearby hotel, but I refused to let him stay under my roof. Lisa got very emotional and said that I was choosing him over family and that I was being unreasonable. Mark, of course, was defensive and claimed I was imagining things and that I was too sensitive. We parted ways that day, and the rest of the weekend, they stayed in a hotel. Since then, my relationship with Lisa has been strained. She says I should have just tolerated him for a weekend and that I overreacted. I feel that what he did was completely unacceptable and that I have every right to feel safe in my own home. My friends and coworkers are divided. Some say I was right. Some say I should have just gritted my teeth for one weekend. I'm struggling with guilt because Lisa is my sister, and I hate the idea of her thinking I don't care about her happiness. At the same time, I feel like I have to set boundaries, and Mark's behavior crossed multiple lines. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my home after his inappropriate behavior, even though it caused tension with my sister? Character count, 6,234 if you want. I can draft another version that pushes the tension even further, with more family drama and emotional complexity, while keeping it around 7,000 characters. That version could feel even more viral Reddit story style. Do you want me to do that? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after what happened last Christmas. This is going to be long, so bear with me. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 26F, who's been dating her fiancé, Jason, 27M, for about 3 years. We've always had a decent relationship, although Emily can be a bit controlling when it comes to family events. Our parents live across the country, so most holidays have been at my place for convenience since I have a larger apartment and a guest room. Last year, for Christmas, Emily insisted that she, Jason, and their dog come stay at my apartment for a week. I agreed because I thought it would be fun, and honestly, I wanted to make the holiday work. What happened next has made me reluctant to host them again, and I need an outside perspective on whether I was wrong. A few days into their stay, things started to go downhill. Jason has a very particular way of doing things and a habit of being passive-aggressive when things aren't done his way. The first night, he rearranged my living room furniture while I was out getting groceries, insisting that it made more sense for traffic flow. I was annoyed but let it slide, thinking it was a one-off. Then, over the next few days, he started making comments about my cooking. "Oh, I usually make my mashed potatoes creamier, or is this really how you serve Brussels sprouts? In my apartment in general, do you always leave dishes in the sink overnight? That's kind of gross. I'm not a perfect host, but I clean before guests come, and I never expected to be critiqued like I was." The worst incident happened on Christmas Eve. I had planned a small family dinner with Emily, Jason, my boyfriend Matt, 30M, and myself. I spent the better part of the day cooking and decorating. Emily and Jason arrived with his dog, which he claimed would behave, but it immediately ran around my apartment, knocked over a candle, and left muddy paw prints on the rug. I cleaned it up, trying not to make a scene, but Jason's response was to complain that my vacuum wasn't strong enough and that my rugs were a little cheap for a professional dog owner to navigate. By this point, I was seething, but I smiled and continued with dinner preparations. When dinner was finally ready, Jason refused to sit at the table because he didn't like the seating arrangement. He wanted to switch with Matt, who was sitting next to me. When Matt refused, Jason gave me the cold shoulder the entire meal, making snide remarks about the wine selection, the lighting, and the way the turkey was carved. Emily didn't intervene, claiming she was just trying to keep the peace. After dinner, Jason stayed up until 3 a.m. complaining about the thermostat and how uncomfortable he was sleeping in my guest room, despite having insisted he could handle it when I offered. By the time they left, my apartment was a mess. Dishes piled up, the dog had chewed a corner of my rug, and Jason had left a permanent dent in the guest room wall from his suitcase. Emily apologized awkwardly, but didn't offer to help with repairs or cleaning. Fast forward to now. Emily called me last week and asked if Jason and her could stay over for Thanksgiving. I hesitated and told her that, given last year's experience, I wasn't comfortable hosting them. I explained that Jason's behavior during their last stay was disrespectful and disruptive. Emily immediately got defensive, saying I was being unreasonable and that she was just asking to spend time with family, not start a debate about furniture. She also claimed that I was holding grudges and that she didn't think Jason had been that bad. I refused, saying that my home is my sanctuary, and I wasn't willing to repeat a week of stress, criticism, and damage control. She got extremely upset, accused me of being selfish, and said that I was putting her and Jason in an impossible position because all we wanted was to spend a holiday together. She even hinted that our parents might think I was in the wrong for refusing to host them. Now, my family's a bit divided. Some of my friends and colleagues have told me that I was completely within my rights to say no, while others suggest I could be more accommodating and let it slide for a family holiday. Emily hasn't spoken to me since the call, and Jason has sent a couple of passive-aggressive texts about how family should be supportive. I feel like I'm being reasonable. My apartment is my personal space, and hosting someone who makes me feel unwelcome and constantly judged isn't enjoyable. I also feel like letting them stay again without addressing the behavior would send the wrong message about boundaries. On the other hand, I don't want to permanently damage my relationship with my sister, but I also don't want to feel stressed and criticized during what should be a relaxing holiday. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her fiancé stay at my place after last year's behavior. Character count, 6,311 if you want. I can draft an even longer version closer to the 7,000 character limit with more detailed interactions, internal thoughts, and dialogue to make it read even more like a viral Reddit story. It would add tension and drama, which is usually what makes these posts blow up. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her dog to my wedding, even though she's threatening not to come. So this is going to be a bit long, but I need some outside perspective because my family is turning this into a bigger deal than I expected. I, 28F, am getting married in a few months, and my sister, 31F, has been making it very difficult on me about a small issue that I honestly didn't think would become this dramatic. When I first got engaged, I immediately started talking to my family about the wedding, venue, guest list, etc. My sister, who has always been a bit attention-focused, immediately started talking about her dog, a rather large golden retriever named Max. She told me that Max was her emotional support animal, and she couldn't possibly be without him for a whole day, which I thought was a bit over the top, but didn't push back at first. Fast forward to now, my fiancé and I booked a small outdoor venue. It's beautiful, intimate, and we specifically chose it because it fits the vibe we wanted, very classic, romantic, and slightly formal. From the beginning, we made it clear to all our guests that pets wouldn't be allowed. Some people understood, some people didn't, but I figured that was normal. Then my sister started sending me increasingly dramatic messages about how I was being cruel to Max. She said that if he couldn't come, she might not come either. I tried to compromise at first. I offered to have her bring Max for the photo session before the ceremony, so he could be in pictures, and she could drop him off afterward. That wasn't good enough for her. Then I suggested she could have a family friend take him to the venue and maybe have him in a separate space during the reception, but she said that was impossible because he gets anxious around strangers, and she couldn't bear to be apart from him. Here's the thing. Max is not a small dog. He's huge, very excitable, and not trained to behave around crowds. I have no doubt that if he were there, he would end up barking during the vows, jumping on people, maybe knocking over decorations, and potentially scaring some guests who are allergic or afraid of dogs. My venue also specifically prohibits animals on the premises unless they are service animals. I explained all this to her multiple times, and she still insists that I'm choosing a wedding over her dog. It's gotten worse in the last couple of weeks. She started sending passive-aggressive messages to my fiancé, calling him a control freak and saying he's not allowing the family dog to attend the wedding because he doesn't care about feelings. She also started posting cryptic things on social media about family being torn apart over love for a dog. Yesterday, she escalated further. She called me crying and said that if I don't let Max attend, she won't be coming at all, and she might even skip my bridal shower. She said that this was the biggest day of my sister's life, and she's making me choose between love and family. I tried to calmly explain that our wedding is a formal event, that pets are not allowed, that I had offered compromises, and that Max's presence could literally ruin the day for everyone else. She said that none of that matters and accused me of being petist, apparently a thing now, and selfish. My parents are involved now, too. My mom thinks I'm being unreasonable and says that I should just let Max come and everything will be fine. My dad told me to stand my ground, but also hinted that I might be alienating my sister forever if I don't compromise. I tried to explain that I'm not anti-dog, I love dogs, and I have friends with dogs, but this is a wedding, not a dog park. The more I try to explain, the more she and my mom accuse me of being mean and inflexible. The thing is, I honestly feel like I'm being reasonable. I'm trying to have a wedding that's safe, fun, and doesn't stress out the vendors or guests. I'm trying to keep it small and classy, and Max being there could genuinely cause chaos. I also don't want to have my sister skip the wedding, but I feel like her demanding her dog's presence is not something I should give in to just to avoid conflict. My fiancé says I'm doing the right thing, but he's also stressed because every conversation with my sister turns into a guilt trip. I feel like if I give in, it will set a precedent for her thinking she can dictate terms for our entire wedding. On the other hand, I keep hearing that I should just let her do this to keep the peace, but it honestly doesn't feel like peace. It feels like giving in to emotional blackmail. I really don't know where to draw the line. Am I wrong for refusing to let her bring her dog to my wedding? Edit to clarify, Max is not a service animal. He is strictly her pet and emotional support, which is why the venue's rules apply. I've also offered multiple compromises, including professional pet sitters, having him for photos only, and separate spaces, all of which she refuses. The wedding is in 3 months, and the tension with my sister is escalating daily. I feel like I'm stuck between standing my ground for the wedding I want and maintaining a relationship with my sister. AITA here. Character count, 6,434 if you want. I can also draft a longer version closer to 7,000 characters. adding more backstory about the sister-child dynamics and how the extended family is reacting, which tends to make stories more viral on Reddit. That could bring it up to full length without losing realism. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister plan my wedding after she humiliated me in front of my entire family? I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 25F. Growing up, she was the golden child in our parents' eyes, smart, beautiful, and effortlessly charming. I've always been the more introverted, academically focused one, which apparently made me boring in comparison. Despite this, I tried to maintain a good relationship with her, and for the most part, we got along fine. That was until recently, when she decided she wanted to be heavily involved in my wedding planning. I got engaged to my fiancé, Mark 30M, about 8 months ago, and the excitement was overwhelming. I had dreamed of my wedding since I was a little girl, but I always imagined it being a personal, intimate celebration. When I mentioned to Emily that I hadn't really started planning yet, she immediately offered to help. At first, I thought it was sweet, but looking back, I should have seen the red flags. Emily started by asking me what kind of theme I wanted, and I gave her a few ideas that I liked. Mostly classic, understated things. Neutral colors, simple floral arrangements, a small outdoor venue. She immediately shot all of my suggestions down, saying they were boring and uninspired. I tried to explain that I didn't want something extravagant, that I wanted a wedding that felt like us, not a show for Instagram. She waved me off and said, "Trust me, you'll thank me later. I know what people want to see." I hesitated, but let her draft a few initial ideas. The first time I saw the list, my heart sank. She had replaced all of my suggestions with a neon-colored circus theme, with clowns and acrobats, and even suggested that we hire a live tiger for the reception. I laughed nervously, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. When I asked why she thought this was appropriate, she said, "Because you're too plain. This is what people remember." I told her politely that I didn't want to go that route, and she pouted like I had personally attacked her. Over the next few weeks, every attempt I made to assert my preferences was met with passive-aggressive comments or outright ridicule. She would send me mood boards with ridiculous ideas, and then tell me I was too basic or scared to be creative. She even suggested that I let her invite some of her friends as surprise guests, who I barely knew. I repeatedly said no, but she kept insisting that I was overreacting and that weddings were supposed to be fun and bold. The breaking point came during a family gathering last month. We were discussing wedding plans, and Emily casually announced that she had already pre-selected the wedding party and venue. I immediately told her that wasn't acceptable and that I hadn't agreed to any of it. My parents, who have always been a little biased toward her, started laughing and saying, "Well, she knows what she's doing." I felt my face flush. I reminded everyone that it was my wedding, not hers, but Emily cut me off mid-sentence and said, "Relax, you're being dramatic. I just want your wedding to be memorable. Honestly, everyone will thank me later." At that moment, I felt completely humiliated. Not only had she dismissed my wishes, but she had done it in front of our family, making it seem like I was being unreasonable for wanting a wedding that reflected my personality. I left the gathering early, feeling angry and hurt. After that, I made a decision. Emily would no longer be planning anything. I politely told her that I appreciated her enthusiasm, but that my fiancé and I wanted to handle the arrangements ourselves. I also told her she was welcome to give input if she wanted, but she would not have final say on anything. She exploded. She accused me of being selfish, controlling, and ungrateful. She told me that I was ruining the chance for a legendary wedding, and that our parents would be disappointed in me. My parents have since subtly tried to guilt me into letting Emily help, though they haven't outright demanded it. Some extended family members have also expressed confusion, saying Emily seems hurt by my decision. Mark has been supportive, but he also notices that my relationship with Emily is deteriorating fast. She hasn't spoken to me directly in over a week and keeps sending passive-aggressive texts about planning disasters and how I'll regret not letting her help. I feel caught in the middle. I love my sister, but I cannot allow her to take over something as personal as my wedding. I've tried to explain that her ideas are just not compatible with what Mark and I envision, but she refuses to listen. I'm worried about the family drama that will inevitably come on the wedding day if I stick to my decision, but I also know I cannot back down. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister plan my wedding after she publicly humiliated me and disregarded my wishes. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he insulted my mental health struggles. I, 29F, have always been open about my mental health issues. I've been dealing with anxiety and depression for most of my adult life. I manage them with therapy and medication, and I'm generally able to live a normal life, but sometimes I need space or understanding when things get difficult. My sister, 32F, has always known about this, and while she doesn't always understand it, she's never been cruel about it until recently. A few weeks ago, my sister announced she and her fiancé, 35M, were visiting my city and staying for a few days. I offered my guest room because my apartment isn't huge and I figured it would be easier than booking a hotel. I mentioned casually that I sometimes get overwhelmed when I have guests and I might need a bit of alone time, and she said that was fine. I didn't think it would be a big deal. The first day went okay, just the usual small talk and catching up. On the second day, things started to go south. My sister's fiancé made a few jokes about me being lazy or sad all the time. At first, I brushed it off, thinking maybe he just didn't understand my sense of humor. But it escalated when I mentioned needing to take a short nap in the afternoon. He looked at me and said, "Wow, it's no wonder you're like this. People your age shouldn't be napping all the time unless they're broken or useless." I was stunned. I froze and didn't say anything at the moment because I wasn't sure how to respond without making a scene. I went to my room and closed the door, feeling both hurt and angry. My sister came in later and asked why I seemed upset. I told her what he said, and she laughed and said, "Oh, he doesn't mean it. He's just joking. You're too sensitive." I was shocked. I have always been straightforward about my mental health struggles, and I never expected her to dismiss them like that. The next day, I decided I couldn't host him anymore. I told my sister that I would be happy to see her for dinner or lunch, but that her fiancé wasn't welcome in my apartment. I explained that his comments were offensive and that I didn't feel safe or comfortable having him in my home. She reacted with anger, saying I was overreacting and that I was embarrassing her in front of him. She also said that he was just trying to lighten the mood and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. I stood my ground, and they ended up booking a hotel for the rest of their stay. My sister hasn't spoken to me much since then and has been posting on social media about how dramatic I am. A few mutual friends have reached out, saying I might have overreacted and that I should try to be more hospitable. But others have told me I was completely justified in protecting my space and mental health. Part of me feels guilty because I know my sister was looking forward to staying with me, and I hate that this caused tension. On the other hand, I feel like if I had ignored his comments, I would have been compromising my boundaries and teaching him that it's acceptable to insult someone over their mental health. I also can't shake the feeling that my sister is more concerned with her fiancé's comfort than with my well-being. I love my sister, and I want to maintain our relationship, but I also refuse to allow anyone to treat me disrespectfully in my own home. I don't know if I'm being too rigid or if I did the right thing. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he insulted my mental health struggles. Character count, 6,054 if you want. I can also draft an even longer, more detailed version closer to 7,000 characters, including extra background, arguments, and subtle tension building to make it feel exactly like one of the viral AITA stories. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me? I, 28F, have always been close with my older sister, Emily, 32F. We grew up with a lot of sibling rivalry, but as adults, we were relatively close. Our relationship has always been a mix of supportive and competitive, but I honestly thought we had reached a stable place. I should also mention that I am very private about my life and don't share a lot of personal details with anyone except for a few close friends and family. Emily got engaged last year, and I was genuinely happy for her. I was even involved in helping her with wedding planning early on, offering suggestions, going with her to tastings, and helping her shop for dresses. She had a big vision for a very elaborate wedding, and I did my best to support her. The problem began a few months ago when she started asking for more personal contributions. At first, it was small things, helping her with DIY decor, assembling invitations, but then she started pushing boundaries. She insisted I donate a significant amount of money to cover some aspects of the wedding I couldn't really afford. I said I couldn't, and she got visibly upset but didn't press further. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. The real breaking point came when she asked me to let her use a personal story from my past as part of her wedding speech. This was a story that was deeply embarrassing and private, something I had never shared with anyone in our family, because it was sensitive and involved a traumatic experience from when I was a teenager. I told her multiple times that it was off limits and that I did not consent to her using it in front of anyone, let alone 150 strangers at a wedding. She brushed me off, saying, "It's part of our story. You were there, so it counts." I was furious and told her no again, firmly this time. Then, a few weeks later, I learned from a mutual friend that Emily had already mentioned the story in the context of her bridal shower. This friend tried to downplay it, saying Emily didn't give many details, but I knew the story had leaked. I confronted Emily, and she admitted it, shrugging it off and saying it wasn't that bad. Everyone loved it. That was when I realized she had completely disregarded my boundaries. After that, things escalated. Emily started sending increasingly passive-aggressive messages about how I was not supportive or selfish because I wasn't excited about helping her in certain ways. She even implied that I was ruining her wedding by not contributing financially or letting her share my story. The situation made me anxious, and I started dreading the wedding rather than looking forward to it. 2 weeks ago, she called me crying, saying she was hurt that I didn't want to be involved in her bachelorette party. I told her I needed space and that I wasn't comfortable attending events where she might share or hint at my private story. She accused me of being dramatic and said I was making everything about me. She told me that if I didn't participate, she would feel like I was abandoning her. I tried to reason with her, explaining that her actions had crossed boundaries and that I couldn't feel safe attending events where she might ignore my limits again. I even suggested attending the wedding only if she promised not to mention or joke about my personal experiences. Emily refused, saying that she couldn't control every word her friends and family said. Ultimately, I told her that I would not be attending her wedding. I felt heartbroken and guilty, but I knew it would be emotionally damaging for me to be there, knowing she had deliberately ignored my wishes. I have offered to give her a gift and even meet afterward to celebrate privately. But she has been cold since then, saying that my absence speaks volumes and that I don't care about family. Other family members have mixed opinions. Some understand my perspective, especially those who know about the story she shared. Others think I'm overreacting and that it's just a wedding, suggesting I should put aside my hurt feelings for a day. My parents are upset and feel torn because they love both of us, but they haven't pushed me to attend. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I don't want to hurt my sister or make family gatherings awkward. On the other hand, I feel that attending the wedding under these circumstances would be a betrayal of my own boundaries and emotional well-being. I've never cut off a family event like this before, and the guilt is heavy. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she shared my private story without permission and refuses to respect my boundaries. AITA for not inviting my sister's children to my wedding, even though my parents insist I should. So, I, 29F, am getting married in about 6 months. My fiancé, 31M, and I have been together for almost 7 years, and planning this wedding has been an emotional roller coaster, mainly because my family has a lot of opinions about literally everything. I come from a somewhat large family. I have 3 siblings, but my focus here is on my sister, Anna, 27F. She has 2 kids, Lily, 5, and Max, 3. My parents adore them, and frankly, so do I. But here's the catch. I really do not want children at my wedding. Not because I dislike kids, but because our venue is a very small, intimate space, and the ceremony itself is quite formal. We also plan to have a lot of speeches, and the dinner is going to be a sit-down multi-course affair, so it's not exactly kid-friendly. When we first started planning, I made it clear in our guest list that no children would be invited, except for the flower girl, my niece, Sophie, from another sister, but she's 7 and very mature. I thought that was reasonable. My parents agreed at first, but once Anna found out, she lost it. She called me and said it was unfair that her kids weren't included, and she accused me of playing favorites with my nieces and nephews. I tried to explain that it's nothing personal. It's purely a logistical and financial decision. The venue can only accommodate 60 guests, and we're already stretching that limit. Including Lily and Max would push us beyond our comfort zone and make the evening more chaotic. Anna wasn't satisfied. She sent me a long text saying, "You're basically saying my kids are a burden. They are part of this family too. I can't believe you'd exclude them just because you don't want to deal with them for one evening." I didn't respond immediately because I was genuinely shocked by how upset she was. My parents then called me separately to ask me to reconsider for the sake of family harmony. They told me that weddings are special events where children should be welcome, and that I was being ridiculous for leaving Lily and Max out. My fiancé supports my decision completely, but he's trying to stay out of the family drama. I decided to stick to my guns and politely told Anna that while I love her kids, our wedding is not a suitable environment for toddlers. I also explained the practical reasons about the venue size, the cost per head, and the nature of the evening. I offered to do something special with her and the kids before the wedding, like a mini celebration or lunch, so they could still be involved in a meaningful way. Anna responded by unfollowing me on social media and texting our parents, saying that I don't care about family and that my wedding is going to be a miserable, adult-only echo chamber. The tension escalated further when my parents started dropping hints about how disappointed they were in me. My dad said, "You're being selfish. Kids are family, and excluding them makes you seem cold." My mom said something similar, and I got the sense they were trying to guilt me into changing my mind. I feel like if I invite Lily and Max, it would open a Pandora's box. Other guests might start expecting exceptions, and I really don't want kids running around during the ceremony or during dinner. My fiancé and I have been talking about this for months, and we're both very clear that this is a firm decision. Now, Anna has started bringing it up in group texts with other family members, making me feel like I'm being publicly shamed. She has even hinted that she might not come if her kids aren't invited, which is heartbreaking because I want her there. I know my parents would be extremely upset if she didn't attend, but at the same time, I cannot bring myself to compromise on this. Some friends have told me I'm overreacting and that children should be part of family events, but others completely understand my position. My fiancé is very supportive and says that we have to make the wedding about us, not about placating everyone else. I'm just feeling torn because I love my family and I don't want to hurt anyone, but I also don't want to invite children into a situation where they'll be bored, fussy, or in the way of a very delicate event. Recently, Anna sent a long email saying, "I can't believe you'd choose your fancy adult-only wedding over your own family. I hope you're happy when we're not there." My parents are now constantly calling me to ask if I've changed my mind, and it's exhausting. Every conversation I have about the wedding now turns into a debate about Lily and Max. I'm trying to navigate this in the most loving way possible, but I feel like I'm being punished for wanting a wedding that reflects me and my fiancé. I've been thinking about giving in just to avoid family drama, but that feels like I'd be sacrificing our wishes for one night. So Reddit, AITA for not inviting my sister's children to my wedding even though my parents insist I should. AITA for refusing to let my younger sister stay at my house after she got out of rehab, even though my parents are upset with me. I, 32 have always been close with my family, but I've also had to be the responsible one for a long time. My younger sister, Emily, 27F, has struggled with addiction for most of her adult life. She's been in and out of rehab multiple times, and while I love her, her behavior has often been a huge source of stress for me and my parents. A few years ago, she did some things that really crossed boundaries. I won't go into every detail, but it involved stealing money from family members and destroying some of my personal belongings. After that, I decided I could no longer have her living with me under any circumstances. I still support her in other ways like driving her to appointments, checking in, and sometimes helping financially, but I drew a firm line about living in my home. Fast forward to last month. Emily finished her latest stint in rehab. I was really happy for her because it seemed like this time she was genuinely committed to getting better. She called me a few days after leaving rehab, clearly emotional and scared. She asked if she could stay with me for a few weeks while she got her life together. I felt torn. On one hand, I wanted to be there for her and make sure she was okay. On the other hand, I remembered all the past issues and the stress she brought into my home. I told her no. I explained that I wanted to support her recovery, but I couldn't risk the chaos that living together had caused in the past. I offered to help her find a temporary apartment or pay for a few nights at a sober living facility, and promised to help with groceries, rides, and anything else she needed. Emily didn't take it well. She accused me of not caring about her recovery, of being selfish, and of abandoning her. She also started messaging our parents, telling them that I was refusing to help her when she needed it most. My parents confronted me a few days later. They told me that I was being harsh and that family should support each other, especially when someone is trying to make a change. They said that I was putting my comfort above my sister's well-being. I tried to explain the boundaries I had in place, and that helping her doesn't have to mean letting her live with me. I even offered alternatives, but they seemed to think none of them were enough. Things escalated further when Emily showed up at my apartment unannounced. She brought her things and said she wasn't leaving. I calmly told her she couldn't stay and that I had made other arrangements for her. She started crying and raising her voice, saying I was betraying her. I called our parents to try to de-escalate, and they arrived to intervene. After some arguing, my parents sided with Emily and said I needed to let her stay at least until she could get back on her feet. I refused. Eventually, Emily left, but she's now staying in a temporary shelter nearby. Since then, my parents have barely spoken to me. They keep saying I'm cruel and that I don't understand what she's going through. Emily is also upset and barely talking to me, even though I'm checking in with her every day, helping with transport to meetings, and sending money for necessities. My friends have been divided. Some say I did the right thing because I set healthy boundaries and protected my mental health. Others say I should have been more flexible, especially since she's just out of rehab and vulnerable. I understand their point of view, but I also feel like I'm being punished for making a decision that was ultimately in everyone's best interest. Letting Emily live with me might have temporarily eased her stress, but would have almost certainly caused tension, anxiety, and possibly relapses for both of us. I want to be part of her recovery, but I also need to protect my own life, work, and mental health. I keep wondering if I should have found a way to compromise more, like setting strict rules or having her stay for just a few days, but I also know from experience that even a few days can spiral out of control. I feel trapped between wanting to help my sister and maintaining my boundaries, and it's creating a lot of guilt. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my apartment after rehab, even though my parents think I'm being cruel. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. I, 28F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emma, 25F. We grew up in a pretty tight-knit family, and even though we have our differences, we've always had each other's backs. Our relationship has mostly been normal sibling stuff until recently, when things got complicated. Emma started dating this guy, Jason, about a year ago. At first, I tried to keep an open mind. I mean, she's an adult and can make her own choices, right? But almost immediately, I noticed a few red flags. Jason was controlling in subtle ways, and sometimes not so subtle. He would comment on the way Emma dressed, who she hung out with, and even the way she spoke to our parents. At first, I didn't want to jump to conclusions because I know people can be awkward when they first meet new family members. But then, over time, things got worse. One incident that really stuck with me was during a family dinner at my parents' house. Jason kept interrupting Emma whenever she tried to speak, often correcting her or finishing her sentences. When I politely said something like, "Hey, let her talk," he scoffed and said, "I'm just helping her articulate better." Emma laughed it off nervously, but I could see she was uncomfortable. That was the first time I realized this wasn't just a minor quirk. This guy was genuinely disrespectful. Fast forward a few months, and they got engaged. I try to be supportive because Honestly, I want my sister to be happy. But the engagement party was a nightmare. Jason made multiple jokes at Emma's expense, calling her high-strung and overly dramatic in front of everyone. Some of our family members laughed, thinking it was harmless teasing, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. I later asked her if she was okay, and she just shrugged and said, "It's fine. That's just Jason being Jason." Then came the wedding planning. I started noticing that Jason was trying to control even the tiniest details. He vetoed the color she wanted, insisted on having his friends in the wedding party instead of hers, and even suggested that my parents and I shouldn't be allowed to give speeches because he didn't want any awkward or emotional stuff happening. At this point, I started speaking up. I gently told Emma that I thought Jason's behavior was concerning and that she deserved to have her opinions respected. She got defensive and said, "You're overreacting. He loves me. Can you just support me?" I tried to drop it after that, but things escalated. About a month before the wedding, Jason started making veiled threats. He told Emma that if anyone in the family didn't conform to his expectations, it would cause drama at the wedding and make her look bad. I found out through my mom that he specifically mentioned me, saying that my attitude might ruin the day. That's when I finally decided I needed to set boundaries. I told Emma that I loved her and would attend her wedding only if Jason treated me and the rest of the family with basic respect. I even offered to have a calm conversation with him, but she said it wasn't necessary and that I should just trust her judgment. Last weekend, I attended the rehearsal dinner. Jason was there, and he immediately made snide comments about me, claiming that I always act like I know better and that I was stubbornly judgmental. Emma didn't defend me. She just smiled nervously and said, "Ignore him." I tried to keep my composure, but when he made a joke about me not being invited to their honeymoon and insinuated that I was selfish, I lost it. I told him that I wasn't willing to be treated like that and that I couldn't in good conscience attend a wedding where someone I loved was being demeaned. Emma exploded. She yelled at me in front of our parents and some extended family, saying I was trying to sabotage her big day and that I was letting paranoia ruin our relationship. My parents were shocked. They begged me to reconsider, but I couldn't. I felt trapped between my love for my sister and my unwillingness to enable Jason's toxic behavior. I left that night, and the next morning, I got a flurry of messages from Emma calling me selfish, dramatic, and accusing me of turning the whole family against her. Since then, family gatherings have been tense. Some relatives have tried to guilt-trip me into attending, saying things like, "It's her wedding. Can't you just put your differences aside for one day?" But here's the thing. This isn't just a petty disagreement. Jason has repeatedly shown that he doesn't respect me or my boundaries. And while I love Emma, I can't stand by and pretend everything is okay when it's not. I'm not trying to hurt her. I genuinely hope she has a happy marriage. But I also refuse to compromise my self-respect. I've offered support in other ways, helping with decor, planning, even hosting some pre-wedding events, but my attendance at the actual wedding is off the table unless he changes his behavior, which honestly I don't see happening. Now, some relatives are calling me the villain, saying I'm being selfish and that I'm causing unnecessary drama. Others are quietly supporting me, acknowledging that Jason's behavior has been a problem from the start. I'm honestly torn because I hate feeling like the bad guy to my own sister. I also don't want to burn bridges with the rest of the family. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. Character count, 6,735. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.